willfully breaks the rules. He knows what he's doing, he's disobeying, and he does that willfully, then there's consequences for that. That depends what it is. But there must be consequences. You've got to tie together wrong behavior with painful consequences. That might be going up to their room for that night or grounded or whatever. It might be a good spanking. But they've got to know that there's a connection between wrongdoing and consequences. Now, and then, look back if you would. I didn't get to this last time. Look at Proverbs chapter 3. And I will try to hurry here this morning. But in Proverbs chapter 3, look at verse number 11 and 12. Our correction of our children, our training of our children, our dedication of our children is something we do because we love them. Right. And spanking is part of that. Now, that's a small part of it, but it is part of it. And let me tell you something. If you spank your children in the right way, for the right reason, it's an evidence that you love them. A person who does not love his child will leave that child to himself. There'll be no interaction. We are to be really involved in the life of our children. In verse 11 of Proverbs 3, he says, "My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth." My children are so precious to me. I was scared to death to do things the wrong way with them. I was intense about how we were to try to raise them. And I'll tell you what, my wife was more intense than I was, because we love our children. Therefore, we want to correct them. Now, the word chastening, we always think chastening is spanking. Spanking is a small part of chastening. Chastening has to do with teaching and training. And I know we're going to talk about that in just a moment, but how to guide them in life, so that the result when they leave your home is that they're well-balanced, happy people that can deal with life. So very important. Now let's go, please, to Ephesians chapter 6. This is where we were in our study. As we looked at chapter 5 and the relationship of husband and wife, and now in chapter 6 with the children and the parents. We'll come back to the verse 4 next time about the responsibilities of the parents. But I want you to notice here two things about two main subjects in these verses concerning the children in verses 1 and 2. He says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise." And the promise, of course, in verse 3 is that it may be well with thee. You get to live a long life if you honor your parents. That's commandment number 5 in the 10 Commandments. And so there's two things here. Number 1 is obedience. Children, obey your parents. Number 2 is honor your father and mother. So that has to do with actions. Obedience is action. And honoring has to do with attitude. So here we have actions and attitude. And it's so important that we train up our children to have the right actions and the right attitudes. So when we're correcting our children, we have to do it in the right way. Now let me just say this. The correction, and in particular discipline, spanking, should never be done because a child is a child. In other words, children make mistakes. Adults make mistakes, but children, they're learning. And they're going to make more mistakes than adults do. Don't expect your child to be like an adult. He's going to do foolish things. He's going to be a child, and he's going to make mistakes. And you shouldn't spank a child because he makes a mistake. He may have been trying to do something the right way and he just wasn't able to do it. You don't spank him for that. Or accidents. Accidents happen all the time, and parents lose their temper, and then they just take it out on the child because maybe something is broken or something is lost, and the child didn't mean it. It was a mistake. It was an accident. Those are not the reasons to spank your children, and for those reasons. You know, the home really, some of the lessons that they should learn from mom and dad is grace, is love and compassion. And we've got to check ourselves that when something goes wrong, that we're not frustrated, we're not taking it out on the child. I remember when I lived in Belfast, Northern Ireland, we were in a place called Ardoyne, Balham Drive in Ardoyne. And it was just a little row house, you know. there was 2 bedrooms. And so my mum and dad had 3 kids. I was the oldest. And so my daddy converted the attic into a bedroom. It was funny. The stairs was like going up a ladder to go up into the room, into your bedroom, you know. But my sister and I were up there one day, and we were pillow fighting. And there was one little light right in the middle, right up at the top of the ceiling. And I threw my pillow, and it hit that light. And it didn't break, but it went out. And I thought to myself, I'm in trouble now. And I worried about that for days. And then finally my daddy come up there, and you know, he never said anything. Maybe he just thought the bulb went out, I don't know. But I thought I was going to get creamed. But I still remember that my daddy, and I think he did know it got hit, but somehow he didn't blame me for it. When I was older as a teenager on the farm, my Uncle Sam had a farm. Me and my cousin Samuel, we would play all the time, and we loved, I learned to drive in a field in an old car, and we loved driving, and I was on a tractor. Shouldn't have been on the tractor, but I was on a tractor, driving it around, and I parked it at the top of the yard. Uncle Sam had his bin lorry down at the bottom of the yard. It's a truck. And so anyway, the tractor didn't have a handbrake on it, and what you were supposed to do is park it in gear so that it wouldn't roll. Well, guess what I did? I put the handbrake on, not realizing it didn't work, and it was left in neutral. I got off it, didn't notice it. I went into the house, and the wheels in that tractor started slowly rolling. And it rolled, and it ran right down the yard and right into his truck. Well, I came out with Samuel, and I said, what's the tractor doing down there? We went down, it run right into the truck, and then I realized what had happened. Now, what are you going to do? Well, got to face the music. Had to go in and see Uncle Sam. And I thought, he is going to read me the riot act. And so I, in great humility, I went in, and I was honest about what had happened, and I told him what happened, and I thought, oh, what's going to happen now? And you know what? He was very gentle, very quiet. I told him I'd pay for it, but he never did have me pay for it, and he just took it with grace. You know, there's times in your relationship with your children that they need to see grace, where maybe they know they made a mistake, or maybe there was something that they did wrong, and you don't come down on them with a ton of bricks. They need to see your love and compassion in those instances. That will go a long way to win their hearts and their minds. So that's not what we're talking about. But when we're talking about correction, it should be because of these 2 things here. In other words, correction should come because of disobedience. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And when a child is disobedient, he's breaking the rules. If a child is breaking the rules, there has to be rules to break. Some families don't have any rules. The kids make up their own rules. No, every home should have if you're training your children, there has to be rules. And so when they're disobedient, they're breaking the rules. If a child willfully breaks the rules, he knows what he's doing, he's disobeying, and he does that willfully, then there's consequences for that. That depends what it is. But there must be consequences. You've got to tie together wrong behavior with painful consequences. That might be going up to their room for that night, or grounded, or whatever. It might be a good spanking. But they've got to know that there's a connection between wrongdoing and consequences. And then for a bad attitude, he says, honor thy father and thy mother. And so a child might obey, but reluctantly. And all the time he's doing it, if he's doing it at all, he's giving you the look. He's muttering under his breath. Or some kids even will just stomp the floor with their feet, and they're rebelling against you. And if they're doing it reluctantly, and that's an attitude problem, because they're not honoring their mother or father. And that requires an attitude adjustment, if you know what I mean. So actions and attitudes are what we correct when children are rebelling, and they will rebel. And let me say, some kids will rebel more than others. There's such a thing as a compliant child. Our Andrew and Jennifer were compliant. Our oldest, TJ, I don't know if they watch this or not, but our oldest, TJ, was strong-willed. He was strong. By the way, having a strong-willed child is a wonderful thing, because you see, if you can train them and they turn out right, they are going to be absolutely fantastic people. They will be successful in just about anything they do. And so some children are different. Our children are like chalk and cheese, are 2 different things altogether. And so you've got to tweak your training to each one. But don't let them break the rules. And don't let them have a bad attitude. Because if they have a bad attitude with you, they'll have a bad attitude with everybody. That's not going to be good for them.